Hello, everybody. This is the CT Sports Talent Show. My name is Christopher Saunders, and please have on from the Foran football program. First year head coach in terms of the football program is Coach Drew's going off to do his own thing as being an AD. Coach Walker is with me. Coach, I appreciate you coming on.
Thanks, Chris. Happy to be here.
I appreciate Coach Drew being able to get this going, kind of gave me your number to be able to connect and make this happen. I know you and I were just talking too, a little baseball, and I want to save that for the baseball time when it gets closer because that's some of the good stuff. But we're in football in terms of the now preseason, quote unquote, and we're getting prepared for that. I know OTAs were last week. In terms of the games are in less than 20 days, something like that, a couple weeks.
Yeah.
Coach, how's it been going as far as getting the young men ready for this upcoming season?
It's been good. We've had good weather. It hasn't been overly hot. No rain has been forecast, so that's been great. And I'm a first year head coach, but I'm a returning staff member to the program. I've been involved at foreign football for the past 9 years, so the kids all know who I am. They already know about what I'm about and kind of how I like things to be ran and organized. So it's been a pretty seamless transition. Like I said, I coached under Coach Drew the last 5 years, so it wasn't something I think the kids were really surprised about. I think it's something they're excited about, and I think that's helped us kind of just hit the ground running like any other year.
How important is it, coach? And I know in the previous player that I had on from Foreign, he talked to me how you love to throw the football. Air raid is, he said, throwing the football is an insult. He wants to toss the pigskin everywhere across the field. That's stuff I like to hear. So, with that kind of expectation, and I'm sure maybe things may have to be adjusted offensively depending on what you have coming back, right?
Yep.
But with the players that you have, right, and with the expectations that they know who you are, there's a comfortability. You've been a part of the program both as a coach and a player. You coach with the baseball team as well. Do you think that kind of lessens the new first year kind of head coach line of trying to get that learning period
Yeah,
crossed, if that
I
makes
think
sense?
drastically. Especially from our offensive standpoint. I was on the offensive side of the ball for the last 5 years. The offense isn't changing. So it's easy. We're not trying to install new work. We're, really just kind of really getting good at our base package right now and then kind of seeing how we can dress it up from there. But the kids already know what to expect coming in. They know we're going to be a spread offense. We know that we're going to put the ball in the air as frequently as we can. Depending on, like you said, what our team dynamic is. Last year, we were very fortunate to throw the ball as often as we did. We had a dynamic quarterback. We had good receivers. The front worked well. I mean, we were probably 70-30 pass last year. But that being said, we still had 8 games with a 100-yard rusher. So we were able to kind of really use our offense in a number of different facets. This year so far looks like it should be the same. We don't have Joe Gaetano back, and that's a big loss. That man is a matchup nightmare. He can run away from most defensive backs. He's bigger than most defensive backs, and he can run away from every linebacker. So it'll be tough to replace those shoes, but we have a lot of quality receivers across the board that should be able to do that. We also lose our quarterback in Jack Cushman, who had a breakout dynamic year as a senior, really understood our offense and how things flowed with it. But we got a junior quarterback, Joey Gagliardi, who's stepping in nicely right now. He's had 2 years to learn, so it's ready for him there. He's ready to take the next step. It's really just about getting his eyes to see the game the way we want right now.
Coach, I was never a coach for football. I coached 1 year for Legion Ball for Naugatuck. So it was kind of cool to be able to see the dynamic of being on a field of a sport that I played and seeing it from that perspective. So when I ask you this as a coach, because you played as well, right? The biggest thing I think that some coaches struggle with is when a new crop of players come in, obviously you have your system, but how do you kind of watch that line of, okay, I don't want to push my system because obviously it doesn't fit every player, but we have kids that can execute, right? The Bill Belichick line.
Yep.
Don't tell me what they can't do. Tell me what they can do. So when you were mentioning some of those players with the losses that you have with graduations and such, there's probably going to be instances where those players maybe can't do what the players in the past did, but combined, this player can be a burner. This player is good in the slot. I mean, so on and so forth. Is that kind of like a cool dynamic as a head coach, now a first year head coach with the football
Yeah.
program in that perspective?
Yeah, it's been fun so far. We're having a big roster right now. We got 74 kids. So
Nice.
that's giving us a lot of chances to put kids in spots that favor them. So rather than asking one kid to do two or three things, or two things he's really good at, but three or four he's not too great at, we can kind of mix and match a little bit. So with our offense and defensive systems, we're going to have some moving pieces going in and out of the game pretty regularly, which I feel is good. It's going to keep us fresher. It's going to keep us healthier, and it gets more kids involved in the program. The days of you're 11 on offense and you're 11 on defense are the same last name. Those days are gone. And I think that's good for the sport. I think that's good for my program as well. So it's going to be nice to mix and match and see where kids can excel. And at the end of the day, that's what a coach's job is. Can I put a kid in a position where he can have success? My system could be the greatest thing in the world, but if my kids can't run it, it's useless. Um, that's just, coaching 101.
This is a very important question because I think some people kind of lose sight of how important this position is, and mainly this group. I'm talking about the offensive line, the Hogs. Those are crucial. I mean, I don't know how much football you've listened to. I'm a Cowboys fan, so I don't care about the Jets and the
Oof,
Giants, Patriots. I
oof.
know, brutal. I'm sorry, terrible. I know. I've seen a handful of playoff wins in my 30 years of life. It's awful. I don't even remember. I remember watching Emmett Smith when I was 2 years old running it in. I thought, probably baby food was fantastic. But anyway, um, the offensive line is massive, right? The Jets, I've kept hearing over and over again, they're only going to be as good as the offensive line. Robert Saleh, who said that in a bunch of swear words, we can't force you to be able to want it. You have to have it, right? And I know the offensive line is going to be a little bit different this year. You've got some young cats coming in. Is that a group that you've kind of kept your eye on? Because that's a crucial part for this team this year.
Well, I think it's a group every coach keeps their eye on. The play starts up front. And if that play doesn't get off to a good start, then it's not going to finish well either. But we did lose an all-state lineman in Aiden Grant. We do return now a 3-year starter at left guard in Brandon Payne. But I've been pleasantly surprised with that offensive front so far this camp. It's been probably my biggest uplifting experience so far, is to see I got a lot of options here. I don't have just five guys I'm trusting right now. I'm six, I'm seven guys that are fighting for that spot for that first Thursday night game. And that's great. As a first year head coach, that's kind of the position you want to make sure you shore up right away. And for the most part, it seems like it's going to take care of itself.
Without revealing too much as far as your strategy potentially with the offensive line, how important is it to have multiple, have depth at the offensive line? Because I think of, McCarthy, right? I know his biggest thing going back to the Packers was to not have just one player have a offensive lineman play just one position, right? He wants them to kind of multitask, go to left tackle, go to right tackle, go to right guard, go to center, just to
Mm-hmm.
get used to that. Because prime example, if there's an injury that happens, like I remember Zach Martin, who's a Hall of Fame right guard, he had to play left tackle because of an injury and so on and so forth
Sure.
last year with the Cowboys. So for you, have you thought about that as far as potentially being interchangeable with your pieces on the line?
Oh yeah. I have drastically, and I believe most coaches do, especially with the new spread offenses that go out there. It kind of makes life easy that way. So everything is right on the player's wristband now. So I'm giving out three different sets of bands to all my guards. I know my center has a left tackle band and a right tackle band. I know my guard is going to have left guard and right guard. So we move around probably, every 8 to 10 plays, we're probably cycling just our main offensive line in some fashion, plus working in our 1As and our 2s at the same time. Because those guys get banged up more than anybody else. And, those five guys that are playing up front for you on offense, they're probably playing in some capacity on defense for you as well. Maybe not as your primary starter, but definitely as a sub guy. So we have to try to account for injuries before they happen. And we're hopeful that they don't. We're hopeful that the same lineup we put out there to start with is what we finish with. But that's an unlikely thing to happen in high school football, really at any level of football. So we're prepared for, if this guy goes down, this is our rotation. If this guy goes down, this is our rotation. If this guy's tired, this is our rotation. And if I need to make sure I get some guys some help, or hey, I gotta I got a better matchup moving him to right guard this week with what they're running at us with the odd front. We're capable to do that. And we're ready to do that.
With the amount of coaches I've talked to who are moving or already have been to the air raid offense and really have kind of embraced in a lot of ways, as you said, the game is changing, right? We're
Mm.
not running the ball like we were 20, 30, 40 years ago. It's becoming a passing league, and it has for probably some time, right? So, one question I've had with them is how important, now, dumb question, how important is blocking? But in terms of being an air raid guy, you got to give your quarterback time to kind of go through his progression, see what he's got, right? And then
Yep.
look for the option. So, in terms of like the tight ends, the running backs, offensive line, we've talked about, but wide receivers, right? How crucial, and have you been preaching that so far in camp about the blocking aspect, giving the quarterback time to go through his progressions?
Daily, daily. I mean, it's the number one thing that's going to make our pass game get off. If we can only get to our first read, we're not going to have much success. One read or one man routes, two man combo routes, those are easy to defend. And you think back to 20 years when it was, oh, I got to throw a pass. I'm running my two best guys on one side of the field, and they're going to cross each other somehow. Well, now basically we're taking four guys and we're going to move them either vertically or width across the field to try to stretch the defense, and that requires some time. And not every receiver at the high school level is a 4-4 runner, so that adds even more time. But that's where a good run game also helps. We're all interested in evolving our pass games as head guys and offensive minded players, but none of that happens if you can't effectively run the ball when needed. And as new as I am and as pass happy as I can get, if I don't have to put the ball in the air, I'm not gonna. If I can grind out 200 yards on the ground, and I can secure a game that way, that's going to be my first choice. I'm not going to put it up there just for the sake of putting it up there because it's more fun and I enjoy it. I'll put the ball in my running back's hands and say, "Hey, take us home." And if you can do that, that opens up the pass game. And that's been football for 50 years. If you have to stuff the box because I got a guy going for 5-6 yards a clip, it makes my pass game that much easier. Now the drops aren't as clean by the linebackers. Our safeties have to play a little bit tighter. Now less pressures on my linemen because they can't just sit there and say, okay, I know it's a pass. I'm going to dial up pressures and stunts and really put your guys in a bind.
I'm going to steal a question from Peter King because I heard it a couple of weeks ago on the Colin Cowherd show when he was talking about how he would ask NFL coaches and such, like, what's your biggest concern? What's the thing that worries you about either football or whatever, right? And he mentioned a quote from a coach about how the college game he was concerned with because there were players, and with obviously the realignments and everything else going on, there are players in the non-power, now I say Super Two, right, between the Big Ten and the SEC.
Right.
Now you've got the Pac-12, which is now the Pac-4. You've got the group of 5 teams that may not and probably won't be able to play against those big time schools, because various reasons with scheduling and so on and so forth. So I'll ask you, Coach, either with football or high school football, whatever the case may be, what is your biggest concern right now as a coach?
It's a tough question, because it's gonna change pretty much year to year with that. I Football is America's favorite game right now. So the game at the high school level is moving into a good direction from a play standpoint. Um, the college game scares me, the NIL stuff, the non-amateur status of the game at the college level is a little bit worrisome to me because that's going to eventually trickle down to the high school level. And if that does, the lopsidedness of money to lack of money teams or higher median income at this town as opposed to this town is going to drastically change the high school football landscape. And that's going to push parents to look for different areas to get their kids to. And that could be doomed for somebody at an inner city school or a two-town high school such as myself, two high school towns such as myself. If we can't stay in that realm, then we could face some problems. I wouldn't say that's my biggest concern. It's probably 20 years down the road. Hopefully my coaching career still lasts that long. But my biggest concern probably for high school football is just going to be the the playoffs and how can we eradicate the playoff system to make sure teams that really deserve to get into the playoffs do. And I think we took some good steps last year in that. Obviously, my program got in, so I'm going to favor it a little bit. But it was nice to see a different set of teams kind of getting in there. It was nice to hear some different names at the end. So I think that's going to be where Connecticut high school football tries to keep their focus of how can I keep this an opportunity for more teams across the state.
I think the playoff system is a one that will never ever be perfect, and I've said that
No.
in basketball too. The days of so I went to Sacred High School in Waterbury. They were the top of basketball for about 7 years or so
Yeah,
up
yeah.
until they closed, right? And there was talks between them, like why were they in S, and then they moved up. Then they went to divisions. Once they went to divisions, it became a little bit different. They weren't getting to Mohegan every year. Now,
Right.
obviously, East Catholic is a team amongst themselves. They're, a top program in the country in terms of basketball. Football and basketball in terms of those playoffs are completely it's going to take, nothing is ever perfect. So coach,
Yeah.
I'll ask you as far as kind of just the football side is concerned. Do you feel like the six, S, double S, M, that whole thing, do you think that is here to stay for the foreseeable future, if you had to guess?
I'm going to say yes. I know they toyed with it probably about, 10 years ago. I think we had six at one point and they went back down. But I think it's going to be around for a while to try to add inclusiveness to the state playoffs.
Mhm.
If we can take more teams, give more kids more football, those things are pluses. I mean, you're always going to have to answer the questions of when is too much too much. I don't think we've crossed that point yet. I know there's that side of the story of, Connecticut is a small state and we're having 6 state championships where you look at Texas and they have 5. Um, Great, that's fine. We don't play in Texas. Let's not worry about Texas kids. When we start playing those guys, then we can start worrying about that.
Yeah.
But right now, I think all coaches are trying to say, okay, how can I keep my kids invested through November? Can I keep my kids invested through week 8? Can I keep my kids invested through week 5? You know, nowadays with the 6 playoff system, if you dump, 2 or 3, you're not dead. In previous years, if you didn't get off to a hot start, you knew your season was a wash, and you're hoping you beat your rival on Thanksgiving, and that was your season. If we can avoid that scenario for more schools, that's a plus. That keeps our numbers up across the state. That keeps teams fielding better players, better prospects, more guys getting off the college, more recruiters. Those are all good things. So I think due to that, we'll see this stick around for a while. We're never going to make anybody happy. There's never going to be a system where everyone just agrees to. Um, Nor do we have the manpower to really create that system. The NCAA themselves can't create that system, and they have unlimited resources. So we have, guys that are trying to do the best they can, and they're not going to make us happy at times. They haven't made me happy at times, but at the same time, I can't ask them to do something that I couldn't do myself. And if I was in their shoes, I'm not sure I would come up with a better solution.
And if I could add that too, Coach, before I let you go, and I appreciate you coming on, I think another factor too is, and I've talked to various people from the CIAC as far as, I actually had Greg Simon on last year about is there any way potentially for, because obviously high schools is not like college. Obviously, it's not like the pros where there's, guys sticking around like for multiple years and you can kind of
Right.
guess like Patty Mahomes is not going away anytime soon. So the Chiefs are going to be pretty good.
Right.
But from year to year, sometime, maybe every other year, it's going to be different for many, many high schools. Obviously, the cream
Yeah.
of the crop, you have a pretty good idea what they're going to be like. But for a majority, 90 something percent, and if I'm wrong on that, I apologize, but there's going to be change every single year. And I asked them, is there any way to quantify that into the mathematics? And right now, there is not. So they have to
I
go
mean,
of the stuff that they have as of right now.
right. I mean, how could you ever really quantify that?
Yeah.
You're not gonna power rank middle school programs or players. So you can't really tell what you're going to have year by year. And
Exactly.
some of it is that's the beauty of high school sports
Yeah.
is it's public. I got to work with what I got there. Colleges, like you said, you're going to know for the most part, I can get a dominating recruiting class. I'm going to be good. Alabama's not going to be bad for a while. Um, and then in the NFL, you're not looking at a 4-year stretch. You're
Yeah.
looking at 10, 12, 15 years for some guys. So yeah, it's a little bit more predictable, but at the high school level, I think that is some of the beauty to it. I know that's something I enjoy as a coach of seeing what I can do with who I have. I'm a Milford resident. I went to Foran. I'm homegrown here, so you know I'm biased, but I think I got some pretty tough nosed kids in my town, and I'm excited to get them in every year and kind of introduce them to the history of what foreign athletics is. So, yeah, I mean, it's I don't think you can ever predict who's going to be a top tier team. I think we know Darien will be good. I think we know a lot of the FCX will be good. Our top tier SECs will always be good, but I don't think that's just the school. Obviously their coaching staffs have a lot to do with it. Their youth programs have a lot to do with it, and the culture of that town has a lot to do with it. And you've seen teams that coaches have gone into those different types of settings and been able to rally and create a better dynamic. It's happened the other way as well. So that's why we choose to coach high school athletics. That's why I choose to coach in my hometown instead of try to go somewhere where there's a little bit more affluency and I can maybe make an easier way of it. That's not something that I'm interested in. I've never coached outside of Foreign. I don't plan on it. Hopefully, in another 30 years, you'll have me back here and I'll be retiring Foreign Lions. So
Coach, I appreciate you coming on. This was a lot of fun. Best of luck this season. Please stay in touch if you'd like. I'd love to get you back on in the future.
absolutely, Chris, loved it.
I'll wrap things up here in the CT Sports Talent Show. So until next time, stay safe. Remember, CT stands for Connecticut Talent. I'm Jerry Find Them All. Do the rest of your day, everybody, and be well.